We start right now in Virginia, where the Washington Post is reporting the FBI executed a search warrant at the home of their reporter, Hannah Natanson, this morning. According to the Post, federal agents searched her phone and devices, seizing 2 laptops. Attorney General Pam Bondi confirming the news in a post on X.
4:47 a.m. Minneapolis, Minnesota. The city slept beneath a blanket of frozen darkness. Windows sealed tight against the bitter cold. Streets empty, silent. Inside a federal command center 3 blocks away, sleep was not an option. Screens glowed red across the operations room. FBI Special Agent Marcus Chun stood motionless, staring at a digital map that had been assembled over 9 months of surveillance. Every dot represented a target. Every line connected them to the same source. Judge Layla Mahad. The order came through at 4:52 a.m. Execute immediately. If you want to see how a federal judge betrayed her oath and the people she swore to protect, hit like right now so this story reaches everyone. For 11 years, Judge Mahad had worn the black robe. She presided over immigration hearings in Minneapolis. Her courtroom decided futures. Asylum granted or denied. Deportation ordered or delayed. To the public, she was fair, compassionate, tough but just. But federal investigators had discovered something else entirely. Between January 2021 and December 2024, Judge Mahad approved 3,847 asylum applications. Standard procedure required background checks, interviews, document verification. Each case should have taken weeks, sometimes months. Mahad's cases took hours. Agents noticed the pattern in March 2023. A routine audit flagged 214 approvals processed in a single week. Impossible under normal circumstances. The Treasury Department opened a parallel investigation. What they found was staggering. Judge Mahad wasn't just approving cases. She was selling them. The price was $18,000 per approval. Payments came through shell companies registered in Nevada, Delaware, and Wyoming. The names meant nothing. Global Consulting Services, Summit Advisory Group, Horizon Legal Solutions. All fake. Behind each company sat the same criminal syndicate. The Somali Brotherhood Network, an organization federal agents have been tracking since 2019. They operated across 7 states: Minnesota, Ohio, Washington, California, Maine, North Dakota, and Wisconsin. Their business model was simple: bring people into the United States illegally, forge documents, buy approvals, collect payment. Judge Mahad was their most valuable asset. Between 2021 and 2024, she processed $69.2 million in fraudulent immigration approvals. Treasury analysts confirmed wire transfers totaling that exact amount moved through her offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands and Dubai. The network didn't just smuggle people. They smuggled weapons, narcotics, and cash. Across borders, through airports, inside legal shipments. And Judge Mahad made sure nobody looked too closely. At 5:03 a.m., the convoy moved out. 18 unmarked vehicles. FBI, DEA, ICE, U.S. Marshals, Homeland Security investigations, all converging on 7 locations simultaneously. The primary target was Judge Mahad's office in downtown Minneapolis. The secondary targets included her home, 2 properties registered under shell companies, and 3 warehouses in suburban industrial zones. The temperature outside was 11 degrees. Frost coated every surface. The streets were empty except for the federal vehicles cutting through the darkness. No sirens. No lights. Just engines and purpose. If you believe corrupt judges who sell justice should face the maximum penalty, comment justice below right now. At 5:18 a.m., the first breach occurred. A battering ram struck the reinforced door of Judge Mahad's office. The frame splintered. Agents poured inside. Guns drawn. Voices sharp. Federal agents. Search warrant. The office was empty. Mahad wasn't there, but her files were. Agent Chun led the evidence recovery team. They moved through the space methodically. Desks, cabinets, shelves, everything photographed, everything cataloged. Behind a false panel in the wall, they found the first cache. 11 encrypted cell phones, burner devices used for communication outside official channels. Each one linked to different contacts. Names federal investigators recognized immediately. Abdi Hassan, listed as a logistics coordinator. Real role, weapons trafficker. Farah Osman, listed as a community organizer. Real role, money courier. Dahir Yusuf, listed as a business consultant. Real role, cartel liaison. The phones contained 4,216 messages, explicit instructions, payment confirmations, approval requests. Clear the transfer by Wednesday. Approve application 7741. No interview. Ensure no secondary review. This wasn't communication. This was command. Agents found the second cache inside a locked filing cabinet. Ledgers. Handwritten. Detailed. Every approval listed by case number. Every payment recorded by date and amount. Every wire transfer documented with routing numbers and account codes. The evidence was overwhelming. One ledger alone contained 892 fraudulent approvals, each one marked with a red check, each one linked to a payment between $15,000 and $22,000. Prosecutors would later describe these ledgers as the most damning evidence they had ever seen in a corruption case. At 5:31 a.m., the second team breached Judge Mahad's residence, a two-story colonial home in the Edina neighborhood, valued at $1.9 million. Purchased in cash in 2022. Agents entered through the front and rear simultaneously. Flashlights cut through the darkness. Rooms were searched one by one. The master bedroom contained 3 safes. The first safe held $340,000 in cash. Stacks of $100 bills bound with rubber bands. All used, all untraceable. The second safe contained documents. Passports. 23 of them. Different names. Different photos. Same criminal network. The third safe held something more dangerous. Encrypted hard drives. 4 of them. Each one password protected. Each one containing files federal investigators had been searching for since 2020. Bank records showing $127 million in wire transfers moving through 18 different accounts. Video recordings of meetings between Judge Mahad and cartel operatives. Audio files detailing payment negotiations. If this shocks you, hit like now and share this so more people understand how deep corruption can go. At 5:44 a.m., the third team hit the warehouse in Brooklyn Park. The building was registered as a storage facility. On paper, it held furniture and household goods. On the ground, it held something else entirely. Agents breached the loading dock door. Inside, the warehouse stretched 14,000 square feet. Rows of metal shelving, wooden crates, cardboard boxes stacked floor to ceiling. The first crate agents opened contained 63 AR-15 rifles. No serial numbers. Fully automatic modifications. The second crate held ammunition. 240,000 rounds. Military grade. The third crate contained something more sinister. Fentanyl. Packaged in vacuum-sealed bricks. Each brick weighed 2.2 pounds. Agents counted 127 bricks. Total weight, 279 pounds of pure fentanyl. DEA analysts would later calculate that amount could produce 63 million lethal doses. Enough to kill every person in Minnesota 3 times over. The warehouse wasn't just storage. It was a distribution hub. Agents found manifests detailing shipments to 14 cities. Chicago, Detroit, Columbus, Seattle, Portland, Denver, Phoenix, Atlanta, Charlotte, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Boston, New York, Los Angeles. Each shipment scheduled within the next 10 days. The raid stopped it cold. At 6:02 a.m., the fourth team executed warrants at 2 additional properties. A townhouse in Bloomington revealed a document forgery operation. Printers, laminators, blank passports, embassy seals from 6 different countries. Agents seized 418 forged documents, social security cards, driver's licenses, birth certificates, immigration papers, all professionally made, all impossible to distinguish from legitimate documents without forensic analysis. The second property was a commercial space disguised as a travel agency. Inside, agents found the financial nerve center, computers running cryptocurrency exchanges, ledgers tracking cash conversions, wire transfer records showing $31.4 million moved offshore in the past 90 days alone. The money didn't move randomly. It followed patterns. Routes designed to obscure origin and destination. From Minneapolis, funds moved to shell accounts in Nevada. From Nevada, they transferred to offshore banks in Panama. From Panama, they converted to cryptocurrency. From cryptocurrency, they dispersed to accounts in Somalia, Kenya, and UAE. The laundering operation processed an average of $4.7 million per month. Over 4 years, federal investigators estimated the network moved $226 million through this system. Judge Mahad received 11% of every dollar. Her cut, $24.8 million. By 6:30 a.m., the scale of the operation became clear. Across 7 locations, federal agents had seized $18.3 million in cash, 279 pounds of fentanyl, 843 firearms, 418 forged documents, and 67 encrypted devices containing evidence of a criminal conspiracy that stretched across international borders. But Judge Mahad was still missing. Comment caught if you want to see what happened when they finally found her. At 6:41 a.m., a tip came through. An ICE agent stationed at Minneapolis St. Paul International Airport reported suspicious activity. A private jet had filed a flight plan to Dubai. Departure scheduled for 7:15 a.m. Passenger manifest listed one name, Layla Mahad. Agent Chun grabbed his radio. All units, target is attempting to flee the country. Airport interdiction authorized. 6 vehicles raced toward the airport. Lights and sirens activated. Speed limits ignored. Inside Terminal 2, Judge Mahad walked calmly through the private aviation lounge. She wore a black coat and carried a single leather bag. No urgency, no fear. She believed she was untouchable. At 6:58 a.m., federal agents entered the lounge. Layla Mahad, you are under arrest. She turned slowly. Her expression didn't change. No shock, no panic, just cold calculation. On what charges? Corruption, racketeering, conspiracy, immigration fraud, money laundering. Shall I continue? Her lawyer would later claim she said nothing, but 3 agents reported the same words. You have no idea what you've just done. They handcuffed her anyway. The arrest was documented at 7:04 a.m. Judge Layla Mahad, age 52, taken into federal custody. She was transported to the Hennepin County Federal Detention Center. Bail denied. Flight risk too high. But her arrest was only the beginning. At 8:15 a.m., federal prosecutors unsealed a 74-page indictment. The charges were staggering. 18 counts of corruption, 23 counts of wire fraud, 14 counts of immigration fraud, 9 counts of racketeering, 7 counts of conspiracy to distribute controlled substances. Each count carried a maximum sentence. Combined, Judge Mahad faced 340 years in federal prison. The indictment didn't stop with her. Prosecutors named 29 co-conspirators, smugglers, money launderers, forgers, traffickers, all connected to the same network, all operating under Judge Mahad's protection. By noon, coordinated arrests occurred in 7 states. In Ohio, agents arrested Abdi Hassan at his home in Columbus. Inside, they found $1.2 million in cash and documents linking him to 14 weapon shipments. In Washington, agents arrested Farah Osman as she attempted to board a flight to Nairobi. Her luggage contained $420,000 in bundled cash and encrypted phones. In California, agents arrested Dahir Yusuf at a warehouse in San Diego. The building contained 89 pounds of heroin and 341 kilograms of cocaine with a street value exceeding $47 million. The network collapsed in hours. If you believe everyone involved in this conspiracy should be prosecuted to the fullest extent, type yes below. The investigation revealed something even more disturbing. Judge Mahad's corruption wasn't isolated. It was systemic. Between 2021 and 2024, she communicated regularly with 11 other immigration officials. Judges, case managers, asylum officers, all involved in processing applications. Federal investigators identified 6 additional judges who had approved suspiciously high numbers of cases with minimal documentation. The pattern was identical to Mahad's. Thousands of approvals, minimal scrutiny, payments to offshore accounts. The Department of Justice launched an internal integrity review. By mid-January 2025, that review had identified 19 federal employees under investigation for corruption related to immigration fraud. The scope was national. Investigators discovered that between 2020 and 2024, approximately 47,000 asylum applications were approved fraudulently. Each one represented a payment. Each payment funded criminal operations. The financial impact was catastrophic. Federal agencies estimated the network defrauded the U.S. government of $1.4 billion in fraudulent benefits. Social security payments, housing assistance, medical benefits, all obtained through falsified documentation. But the human cost was worse. The fentanyl seized in Brooklyn Park was destined for 14 cities. Had it reached the streets, DEA analysts estimated it would have caused between 8,000 and 12,000 overdose deaths within 6 months. The weapons seized were linked to 23 unsolved homicides across 5 states. Ballistics matched shell casings found at crime scenes in Minneapolis, Columbus, Seattle, Detroit, and Chicago. The immigration fraud enabled criminals to enter the United States undetected. Once inside, they established operations: drug trafficking, weapons smuggling, human trafficking. Federal investigators confirmed that 214 individuals approved through Judge Mahad's court had criminal records in their home countries. Violent offenses, organized crime connections, terrorism links. All of them cleared by a judge who accepted cash instead of enforcing the law. Share this video if you think people need to know how corruption enables crime. At 2:30 p.m., the Attorney General held a press conference. The room was packed. Cameras, reporters, federal agents lining the walls. Today, federal law enforcement dismantled one of the most extensive corruption and criminal networks in recent U.S. history. Judge Layla Mahad, entrusted with upholding the law, betrayed her oath. She sold justice. She enabled criminals. She put American lives at risk. The Attorney General didn't take questions. The evidence spoke for itself. Behind the scenes, prosecutors were building an airtight case. The encrypted phones provided 4,216 messages, each one time-stamped, each one documented. Defense attorneys couldn't claim hacking, couldn't claim fabrication. The ledgers provided irrefutable proof. Handwriting analysis confirmed Judge Mahad wrote every entry. Forensic accountants matched every payment to corresponding wire transfers. The video recordings captured meetings between Mahad and cartel operatives. Her face, her voice, her words. How much for 50 approvals? 18 per case. Payment up front. Done. This wasn't circumstantial. This was confession on tape. By evening, news outlets across the country ran the story. Federal judge arrested in massive immigration fraud scheme. Judge sold asylum approvals to criminal network. Minneapolis corruption scandal exposes systemic failure. Public reaction was immediate. Outrage, disbelief, calls for accountability. Within 24 hours, more than 100,000 people signed petitions demanding mandatory integrity reviews for all federal judges involved in immigration cases. Congress announced hearings. The Senate Judiciary Committee scheduled testimony. The House Oversight Committee opened investigations. The scandal reached the highest levels of government. At 9:47 p.m., Judge Mahad sat alone in a federal holding cell. No bail, no visitors, no phone calls. Her lawyer had already informed her of the reality. The evidence was overwhelming. A trial would be public. A conviction was certain. Prosecutors offered one option: cooperation. Name every official involved. Identify every payment. Testify against co-conspirators. In exchange, the government would recommend a reduced sentence. Without cooperation, she faced life in prison. Judge Mahad refused. She believed loyalty to the network would protect her. She believed silence was survival. She was wrong. At 11:30 p.m., federal investigators received information from an unexpected source. Dahir Yusuf, arrested in San Diego, agreed to cooperate. He provided names, locations, payment schedules. In exchange, prosecutors reduced his charges. Yusuf's testimony revealed a network far larger than investigators initially understood. Judge Mahad wasn't the only official compromised. She was part of a coordinated system involving immigration courts in 9 cities: Minneapolis, Seattle, Los Angeles, San Diego, Miami, New York, Boston, Detroit, and Chicago. Each court had at least one judge or case officer on the payroll. Each one processed fraudulent applications. Each one received payments ranging from $15,000 to $25,000 per approval. The operation had been running since 2018. 7 years. Tens of thousands of fraudulent approvals. Federal prosecutors estimated the total financial fraud exceeded $3.1 billion. This wasn't a local scandal. This was a national crisis. Comment expose if you believe every corrupt official must be named and prosecuted. By January 15, 2025, the investigation expanded into the largest anti-corruption operation in Department of Justice history. More than 800 federal agents were assigned to the task force. FBI, DEA, ICE, Treasury, Homeland Security, U.S. Marshals. Their mission was simple: identify every compromised official, seize every fraudulent dollar, prosecute every criminal involved. Warrants were executed in 9 states. Offices raided, homes searched, bank accounts frozen. In Seattle, agents arrested immigration judge David Kim. Evidence showed he approved 1,214 fraudulent cases and received $21.8 million in offshore payments. In Los Angeles, agents arrested case officer Maria Gonzalez. Her computer contained encrypted communications detailing payment arrangements with cartel operatives. In Miami, agents arrested asylum officer Jonathan Reed. His bank records revealed $8.4 million in unexplained deposits between 2021 and 2024. The arrests continued for 3 weeks. By February 5, 2025, federal prosecutors had indicted 47 officials, judges, case officers, administrative staff, all involved in the same conspiracy. The public response was seismic. Trust in the immigration system collapsed. Polls showed 78% of Americans believed corruption in federal courts was widespread. Confidence in judicial integrity dropped to historic lows. Congress acted swiftly. The Senate passed emergency legislation mandating annual financial audits for all federal judges and immigration officials. The House approved funding for a permanent anti-corruption task force within the Department of Justice. President Trump addressed the nation on February 10, 2025. What we discovered in Minneapolis is a betrayal of everything America stands for. We trusted these officials to uphold the law. Instead, they sold it. They sold justice. They sold safety. They sold out the American people. That ends now. The administration announced sweeping reforms. Mandatory integrity reviews. Whistleblower protections. Enhanced financial oversight. Criminal penalties for corruption doubled. But reforms couldn't undo the damage already done. Federal investigators began the painstaking process of reviewing every asylum case approved between 2018 and 2024. More than 180,000 cases, each one requiring re-evaluation. Immigration attorneys filed emergency motions challenging approvals. Defense lawyers representing criminal defendants sought case dismissals based on judicial corruption. The legal system was overwhelmed. If you think every fraudulent case should be reviewed and reversed, hit like now. In Minneapolis, the community struggled to process what had happened. Judge Mahad had been a public figure, respected, visible. She attended community events, spoke at forums, presented herself as a champion of justice. Residents felt betrayed. How could we not see it? One community leader asked. She was supposed to protect us. Instead, she endangered us. Local officials scrambled to restore trust. Town halls were held. Transparency initiatives announced. But the damage was deep. Crime statistics revealed the consequences of Mahad's corruption. Between 2021 and 2024, violent crime in Minneapolis increased 34%. Drug-related arrests rose 51%. Weapons offenses climbed 47%. Federal investigators linked these increases directly to individuals approved through fraudulent immigration processes. Of the 3,847 cases Mahad approved, 214 individuals had criminal records. 63 were arrested for violent crimes within 2 years of arrival. The drugs seized in Brooklyn Park were traced to 89 overdose deaths across Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Illinois between 2023 and 2024. The weapons seized were connected to 23 homicides. Judge Mahad's corruption had a body count. Families who lost loved ones to violence or overdoses filed civil lawsuits. By March 2025, more than 140 lawsuits have been filed against Judge Mahad, the federal government, and the agencies responsible for oversight. Legal experts estimated total liability could exceed $400 million. At 3:15 p.m. on March 18, 2025, Judge Mahad's trial began. The federal courthouse in Minneapolis was surrounded by protesters. Some demanded maximum sentences. Others called for systemic reform. Inside, the prosecution presented its case over 4 weeks. They entered 4,216 text messages into evidence. Each one read aloud. Each one documenting corruption. They presented ledgers showing 3,847 fraudulent approvals and $69.2 million in payments. They played video recordings of meetings between Mahad and cartel operatives. They called 37 witnesses, federal agents, forensic accountants, asylum seekers who paid bribes, victims of crimes committed by individuals Mahad approved. The defense offered no witnesses. Judge Mahad's attorney argued entrapment, claimed the payments were consulting fees, suggested the evidence was circumstantial. The jury didn't buy it. On April 22, 2025, after deliberating for 11 hours, the jury returned a verdict. Guilty on all counts. The courtroom erupted. Victims' families wept. Federal agents nodded. Judge Mahad showed no emotion. Sentencing was scheduled for June 3, 2025. Type guilty if you believe justice was served. Prosecutors recommended the maximum sentence, 340 years in federal prison. Defense attorneys requested leniency, argued Mahad had cooperated, despite evidence showing she refused. Claimed she had dependents, despite records showing her children were adults. The sentencing judge was unmoved. Layla Mahad, you were entrusted with one of the most important responsibilities in our legal system. You were given the power to decide who enters this country. You were expected to exercise that power with integrity. Instead, you sold it. You sold justice for cash. You enabled criminals. You endangered innocent lives. The damage you caused is immeasurable. The judge paused. This court sentences you to 28 years in federal prison. No parole. No early release. You will forfeit all assets, totaling $31.7 million. You will pay restitution to victims in an amount to be determined. You are permanently barred from holding any public office. Judge Mahad was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs. She would spend the rest of her life in prison. But the story didn't end there. The 46 other officials indicted faced similar fates. By August 2025, 41 had been convicted. Sentences ranged from 12 to 35 years. The network was destroyed. Federal agencies seized a total of $487 million in cash and assets. Prosecutors secured convictions against 284 individuals connected to the criminal conspiracy. The reforms implemented in response to the scandal transformed immigration oversight. Mandatory audits. Enhanced background checks. Real-time financial monitoring. By December 2025, fraudulent asylum approvals had dropped 91%. But trust wasn't easily restored. Polls showed only 42% of Americans believed the immigration system was functioning with integrity. The damage Judge Mahad caused extended beyond dollars and sentences. She had shattered faith in institutions designed to protect the public. Hit subscribe right now so you don't miss future investigations into corruption that threatens our communities. The lessons from Minneapolis are clear. Corruption doesn't announce itself. It hides behind respectability, behind titles, behind oaths. Judge Mahad wore a black robe. She sat in a courtroom. She quoted the law. And behind that facade, she destroyed lives. The vigilance required to protect democracy is constant. Systems depend on oversight. Oversight depends on accountability. Accountability depends on people refusing to look away. The agents who investigated Judge Mahad spent 9 months assembling evidence. They tracked financial records, analyzed communication patterns, built cases that couldn't be dismissed or ignored. They didn't assume the system would correct itself. They forced it to. That's the only way institutions survive. Not through blind trust, but through relentless scrutiny. Comment never again if you believe corruption must always be met with consequences. Today, the communities affected by Judge Mahad's crimes are rebuilding. Families who lost loved ones have formed advocacy groups. They push for stronger protections, demand transparency, refuse to let the system fail again. Immigration courts operate under enhanced oversight. Every decision reviewed, every approval documented, every official monitored. The reforms are working, but they require constant maintenance. Corruption doesn't disappear because one judge goes to prison. It adapts. It finds new weaknesses. It waits for attention to fade. That's why stories like this matter. They remind us that vigilance isn't optional. It's essential. They show us that betrayal can come from those we trust most. And that justice, when finally delivered, comes because people refuse to stay silent. If you believe this story needs to reach more people, share it now before it's buried. The fight against corruption never ends. It continues in every courtroom, every audit, every investigation. And it continues with every person who refuses to accept that power, once granted, can be trusted without question. Judge Layla Mahad is in prison. Her network is dismantled. The reforms are in place. But the vigilance that exposed her must remain, because the next threat is already out there, hiding, waiting, and the only defense is a public that refuses to look away. Hit like if you believe justice is worth fighting for. Comment what reforms you think should happen next. Subscribe so you're always informed about the corruption that threatens our communities. This is only the beginning of the fight. Stay vigilant.